Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're doing another episode of our Jurassic World Evolution Accurate Dinosaur Mod Collection, or just the Accurate Mod Collection, where we take a look at different animals that are been edited to look more like their real-life fossil counterparts, and to the best of knowledge of us, and also what can fit in the rigs and such. And today we've actually got quite a good selection. We don't have really any small carnivores today. We've really got big things. We've got a lot of big theropods, and we got some sauropods and a couple other things. So today's going to be full of a lot of really big animals. So let's see what we've started off with here today. We got MrTroodon, who just released a preview for his big, huge update for his big edit pack. So he just gave us a little teaser, so I'll show that off. Here we've got Tarbosaurus. So we can see here how much it's improved. We can see the anatomy has improved a wee bit. So this, the back's changed a bit. It's a wee bit nicer. Oh, wrong one. So you can see, there we are. So have a look here. You can see the changes that have been made, especially in the skin. It's the skin, like these stripes here that look really nice, and this gradation of the stripe here, along with the counter shading, looks really nice. I like that. And Tarbosaurus is quite famous for having a rather phallic crest, and has been drawn a lot like a weird phallic. It's the scientific word for something that could get me demonetized. So that's alright. But here we've got a nice, more accurate representation of the crest, because the crest itself was not preserved fully, so that's where it kind of came as a meme. But we know that it probably looked a lot more like this, and I think it looks quite nice. It's got a nice tall but fanning out crest. Looks quite nice. It's the edits in the head and all that. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Isn't too different from the original one that he did. He just changed the skins to not make them just bright red. I think that looks a lot better. They're just not so saturated. I think those look quite good. So let's have a feed. Quite beautiful looking animal. Brontosaurus is, I think, quite underrated. It's a really early, it's like a bit earlier than Parasaurolophus. It's kind of its own little group. It's very interesting. It's from China as well. Who doesn't love Asian dinosaurs? She's clearly having a good feed. Picking and chewing, just loving life. Oh, she's standing up now. So now she's probably going to run off and do her own thing. You're a pretty girl. So next we'll move on to... This one is done by the Dragon Armagist guy, who has done quite a few mods recently. So this is probably one of his older ones, but why can't I not show this? We've got a Triceratops. So we can see here, this one is supposed to be Triceratops Horridus, but it looks more like Brachiosaurus, and the tongue's going a bit wacky there. Let's just move down here and give her a look-see. You can see a lot of the main edits that have been happening. You can see the face has been a little bit, the frill's been changed quite a bit, back's been a bit more rounded, tail's a bit too long for what it is, and as I said, this is supposed to be Horridus, but the difference between Horridus and Brachiosaurus is that Brachiosaurus has a little bit of a longer face and a bit more prominent of a nose horn, and it's kind of the opposite with the Horridus, which has got a really short boxy face. And a lot of people think, oh, it's the the horns that differentiate. No, there's a huge amount of variation within Triceratops brow horns. But this is quite nice. I think it could just use a little bit of love, because we know that Triceratops had some really weird scales, and I think the feet could use an update, and the tail could obviously use some love. But other than that, I think this is quite a nice edit. It looks quite nice. I like the colours of it as well. You can't really see it in this light here, but you can see little eye holes on the skull, and not the holes, but eye patterns. Looks quite nice. Just a little bit more TLC. Maybe fix the feet up a wee bit. The feet look a little off, but and the beak and the textures, and it would look pretty good. It's just, yeah, we don't really have that good of a Triceratops. We have some okay Triceratops mod, but we don't have anything that blows out of the water. Maybe if we sweet talk Duck a little bit, maybe he'll make us one. But nah, there's still a good mod. I still like this. It's really quite a cutie. So now we'll move on to the next one. Now we're getting into all the sauropods. It's all sauropods from here on out. So here we've got another one of MrTroodon's models. Here we've got Camarasaurus. Okay, so here we've got Camarasaurus from the late Jurassic, the Morrison Formation. So we can see here it's been changed quite a bit. We can see the neck's been made quite a bit longer, and the head's been changed quite a bit. We'll pause on the head. So that's quite a nice head actually, because Camarasaurus is very famous for having a very boxy head. You can see, yeah, that was quite nice. Personally, what I would have done is maybe just extend the soft tissue a wee bit and make it like a true box, but if you're going to be a little less speculative, this is probably the best way to go. I quite like how this skull came out though. Nostrils could be a bit shorter. Now we've got to check out those feet. It's the most important thing. Now, as I've mentioned quite a few times, the feet are definitely the right shape. It's just Camarasaurus did not have any nails other than the dew claw on it, so that's wrong, and it's been thinned up quite a bit. Looks quite nice. Also the neck's been thickened in the tail. Yeah, looks, other than that, those two very minor things, I'd say this is a pretty good one. So just watch it do a thing. Fits pretty well with the animation. Yeah, a lot of people get dinosaur feet wrong, just because, and plus this isn't supposed to be 100% accurate, his mods. It makes them more accurate to the anatomy, but you still keep some of that JWE flair to them. So I can understand. We'll just watch him have a drink and see, or her actually. We'll watch her have a drink and then we'll get on to the next big sauropod. Pretty girl. Just cleaning nice and having a drink. I swear, once this pack comes out, we just have to make another episode just on them. Because he's been working on it for quite a while and just making a whole bunch of things. Even some hybrid stuff. He's even making an Ultimasaurus, which I'll be really keen to do. Like, if you guys want to see a hybrid pack where I go through a bit of different hybrid mods, you should give me a comment and like and tell me that you want to see it. So now that we've moved on from Camarasaurus, we're going to be doing another one of her contemporaries. We'll be looking at here. We've got, also done by Drags, the same guy who did the Triceratops. We have got Apatosaurus, but it's not Apatosaurus, it's a very close relative. We have Brontosaurus. That's quite a nice one. So this is Brontosaurus Excelsus, which is probably one of the more Shift C. Here we are. The more famous of the Apatosaurines. Very charismatic one. Now the thing is that people used to say, oh, Brontosaurus isn't real, it was actually Apatosaurus, but now there was a study back in 2015, I believe, that shows that Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus were both something. So we finally, after 100 years, have Brontosaurus back, and we can see here she is a beauty. You can see this very long tail that she's got here and sloped back. Things that really makes Apatosaurines very different from like Diplodocids and such. They've got very thick, very wide necks, and I think Draco did a good job of showing it off here. We also can see here, instead of having those ugly textures of the original that are like elephant wrinkles, here we can got some scales, because we know that sauropods had some very small scales, and yeah, it looks quite good. You can see also the feet are quite right. We've got probably not a nail there. We can see here very horseshoe-like, a big round pad at the back one. Looks very nice. Quite like how this one came out. Even the skin too. I like the red here. Probably the pattern could use a bit of, maybe if it was just a bit more brownish, I think that could work well, but other than that, looks great. So let's see what we go. Let's see if she's going to go for a feed, or is she going to go for some water. So you can see this sloping back. Now there's been interesting research about Brontosaurus, and there's been thinking about why do they have such a wide necks compared to other Diplodocids. So we can see here it's got believed to actually be more for intra-Pacific combat, which means they would fight with each other, perhaps like something like elephant seals or elephants do today, where they will probably go up and neck each other and just slap into each other, just very it would be very impressive display to think about. Some 30-40 ton sauropod, just two of them just whacking each other. Kind of getting in the way there, Miss Trike. She's moving. We can see how beautiful Brontosaurus have a drink. She is quite pretty. The blue eyes are a bit weird though. And she's got the correct feet. Still got the nails though, but other than that, pretty good. See, Apatosaurines are quite stocky, powerful. If you think about it, Diplodocus is the lightweight, these guys were the heavyweights. Probably, actually, it's believed maybe because these guys lived in more forested environments. So like if you compare African forest elephants to African bush elephants are a lot lankier and such, while forest elephants are quite more compact because they have to push through the rainforest, which means you kind of have to be thick just to push through it. So that's believed to be the discrepancy between Apatosaurus and Diplodocids. Still a very beautiful animal. God, I love Apatosaurus. Okay, now we've got... This one is done by Zach Chu. Zach Chu. This guy has a bit of a history. He was making some really weird mods. He was just making Diplodocids and weird animals. He's just making them really fat and not making them look good. But I've seen that he's kind of like gone back and thought, they're not looking that good, and really updated his anatomy a bit. So I thought that since he's put in that effort to really improve his anatomy, it makes some actually pretty nice looking mods. I'll show some of the mods that he's been making. So here we've got his Dreadnoughtus, but it's actually meant to be Argentinosaurus, which is the largest dinosaur known from reliable remains. So here we have Argentinosaurus. Let's have a look, and just while she's having a move around, so we can see Argentinosaurus, the largest dinosaur known reliably. Estimates, I think the most recent estimates put her at about 33 meters long and weighing about 90 tons. Very, very big, like whale size, pretty much a whale, longer than a blue whale on average. So we can see quite a big, beautiful animal. So we can see the changes. A really nice thick neck, longer tail. It's almost like these titanosaurs obviously lived. This one lived in South America with Mapusaurus, which is a relative of Giganotosaurus. And we can see, yeah, it looks pretty good in terms of anatomy. We'll wait for her to get to the pond here to look at her feet. We saw the nails, I think, at the front. That's not quite right. It would be a big fleshy horseshoe, as I've mentioned. And the skull here looks a little bit off. We don't have any skulls from Argentinosaurus. It's really only known from a thigh bone and a few vertebrae. But from its relatives like Tyrannosaurus and Dreadnoughtus, which is actually pretty well known as well, and some other close relatives, it really kind of looked like a chunky diplodocid. That's really the best way to describe it. So, looking at reference, you could easily fix it up and make a slightly better Argentinosaurus. Though I have to say, that nose looks a little odd. It's got like a weird, like horse muzzle going on there. But other than that, and the toes there, you can see here, there's a little bit of view of the toes. There would have been no nails like that on the animal. Other than that, it's pretty damn good. So what shall we drink? Very tall. You can see the Tarbosaurus in the background. The one really interesting thing is about these big titanosaurs is how much they change as they grow. Because if you think about it, titanosaurs laid eggs about the size of a rugby or a football. So if you think about how much they have to grow from a little rabbit to these giant animals, they kind of go through a lot of different niches as they grow. It'd be pretty much, imagine going from a rabbit to a sheep to a cow to an elephant through your growth. That's pretty much what would happen with these really big animals, because there's such a huge discrepancy in size from their babies to the adults. So it'd be really weird to occupy the same niche. Yeah, it's very beautiful. But that's one of the many things that makes sauropods quite interesting. Yeah. And we're going to actually have a look at one of the updated models from the last one, I think. So here we've got, also done by Dragon Armada, we have one of my goat dinosaurs, Brachiosaurus. Now if you compare, you can see that it's a lot lighter. It'd be cool if we also had some new textures for it, but I'm still quite happy with how that looks. We can see the feet have been fixed, as I've mentioned. It's like a very horseshoe I've kind of just said that too many times. Horseshoe thing, and they have these big dew claws there. Feet look pretty good. Could probably be a little bit thickened out, but looks pretty good as it is. Longer tail. Difference between Giraffatitan and Brachiosaurus is often the difference between the tail, because Brachiosaurus has a bit of a longer tail and a more rounded body. It's a little bit bulkier than Giraffatitan. Giraffatitan's a bit lankier. But yeah, still pretty nice. And we can also see the head here. Nostrils might not be exactly the right place, but still looks pretty good. We can see there's a thing called rugosity, which is the texture of the skull. So the more craggly and weird it looks, the more closer you can estimate the soft tissue. It's not a hard, fast thing, but it's a good general rule. Like the rougher texture of the skull, the less soft tissue was there. So Brachiosaurus itself had very smooth skulls. So it's possible they had a lot of soft tissue, like big lips and maybe a big crest, similar to monitor lizards. They're a good example, since they have the nostrils in a similar place. Yeah, that's a good example of how they'd look. And see her go walk for a drink. She's quite beautiful. So yeah, I quite like how they incorporated them. It's still a bit speculative, but you kind of have to be, because we know that dinosaurs were not just skin and bones. We know they had skin and muscles and tissues, so you've got to experiment with it a wee bit. Yeah, and I really like the thickness of her. She's a beautiful animal. And of course there's like people that go too far with it and just make them look fat and disgusting. But yeah, I think there's a good happy medium that people need to reach. Just looking at anatomy is really what should be the goal. So have her standing up there. God, she's so tall. Even now, Brachiosaurus was once the biggest dinosaur ever, getting 70 tons. But now, even though she's been downsized a wee bit, she's still one of the largest dinosaurs. She really does have a special place in a lot of people's hearts. She's quite beautiful. And look at her having a drink. I want to take a screenshot of that. Maybe take another one. See if she looked the other way. Her neck's a little bit crooked, but that's just the rig. She's having a nice drink there. Here comes her other sauropods. A lot of sauropods today. Let's see. The thing is that she would have lived with Camarasaurus and Brontosaurus. So Brachiosaurus is actually pretty rare in the Morrison Formation, probably just doing its own thing. These guys probably would have lived in more forested areas, and Camarasaurus is probably more semi-arid. Morrison was a huge area covering many different states across the United States. So there's a lot of niche partitioning going in there, so they could all live together without competing with each other. Very beautiful. So now we've done with all the big sauropods and all the herbivores, time to get into some big carnivores. Everyone's favourite. So here we're starting off with another one of MrTroodon. You'll remember him from the very first accurate dinosaur mod collection. We have an updated Giganotosaurus. So we can see what's been changed. So we can see here what's changed. Look at that. She's a beauty. I like this a lot. I like the iguana space going down her back. So we can see the huge changes that have been added. You can see the skull shape. So the original had a really weird shaped skull. It was like too pointy. These Giganotosaurus have these very big skulls that are like quite light, so they'll be able to shear through flesh. Very much adapted for that. You can see the big crest here. It looks very nice. I'm really liking how this one came out. Been thickened up a wee bit. Same with the back here. Longer tail. Like the arms have been fixed a wee bit. Yeah. Very nice. And I really like how it kept the original kind of style. It just updated the anatomy a wee bit. So watch her have a drink. Ooh, she's clearly having a bit of a fun time. See the updates on the skull, keeping the knobbly texture. So she lived in Northern Africa in the late Cretaceous, hunting animals like Parellititan and Tyrannosaurus, living with Spinosaurus as well in the Kim beds. It was a very wetland ecosystem, so supported a lot of different animals, lots of big fish, lots of, and the dry area supported lots of hadrosaurs and iguanodontids and sauropods and that. So there's niche to petitioning going in there as well. So Giganotosaurus would be feeding on things like mega herbivores like Tyrannosaurus and Parellititan, while Spinosaurus would be feeding on fish and stuff in the waterways around Kim. So that's a good example of niche petitioning to avoid competition. And speaking of close relatives, here we've got another one of MrTroodon's models. He made this. He was commissioned this from. This is based off the design of a animated series. I think it's called. I forgot the name of it. Mesozoic Life. I'm pretty sure it's called. And here it was based off that model. So here it's quite accurate too. So we open up the new Giganotosaurus, our first Giganotosaurus model, really. So you can see a big size there. Looks quite nice. You can see the updated anatomy. I really like the colors on this one. I like the orange. It really fits. Like, it'd be good for hiding in a dusty place. I think the color just comes out really well. Let's see here. The head's been updated a bit too. We can see we can see how similar these guys are. They're very closely related, but just come from different places. We have Giganotosaurus from Africa, of course, and then we have Giganotosaurus from South America. You can see these very blade-like teeth for flesh grazing off big sauropods. We can see all these nice textures. I really like the textures and the model fixes. It just looks a little bit more, that much more better. That's perfect English too, so we'll just watch you do with that. Ooh. Yeah, that's a very nice colour. He's really stoltering around doing a thing. She's going for feed. First thing, she's hungry gal. I think it's the pronated hands as well, but that's alright. As long as we're aware of it. Other than that, it's a phenomenal model. I'm really happy how this one came out. MrTroodon, you're starting to really come back in style. She is quite pretty. So now we've got our big Giganotosaurus on the way. So you can see here there's Giganotosaurus and Giganotosaurus. We're getting the two relatives of one of the most famous, if not the most famous dinosaurs. Here we have, this one is also done by JWE. We can see if you guys guess this one, or I'll just say, we've got two different relatives of Tyrannosaurus. We have, this one here is Zhuchengtyrannus, which is from Asia. Well, both of these are from Asia, but from Asia, lived with Triceratops, and we'll just have to pull them out. So we can see this is Zhuchengtyrannus, which is obviously known from the same formation as Triceratops in China. I believe China or somewhere in Asia. What makes this different from Tyrannosaurus is it's quite a bit older. I believe it's about a little bit more than 70, I think about 73 million years ago, something like that. And we only know it from maxillary and dentary, so we really only know it from the face here. But what from gathered, it's slightly bigger than the next animal that we have on this, and a little bit smaller than Tyrannosaurus, so it's a little bit of a midway. So Tyrannosaurus is quite derived in how it has really big bone-crushing jaws because it lived with animals like Triceratops and Ankylosaurus, which are very tough animals. So this is kind of like a midway between that and the next one we got here. Even like Giganotosaurus, which is used to very light, which is used to shear off flesh rather than crush bones and such. So yeah, this is Zoomtyrannus. It's really only known from the maxillary and dentary, so it might not even be its own thing, but it's still a very nice model to have and give us some more variation with Tyrannosaurus. So we'll go and watch you do with thing. Just not quite as robust as Tyrannosaurus, and not quite as lanky as the next one we got here. She's going for feed. I thought she would have gone for drink. Very pretty gal. She's really going into it. Okay, so now let's have a look at the next one, a relative. So here we've got a mystery dinosaur. Okay, also from Asia. It's it's often just dubbed the Asian T-Rex, but it's really a lot different in terms of anatomy. So I think we better just let out the reveal. Now this is Tarbosaurus. Tarbosaurus is very famous for being the Asian T-Rex, like you've seen like Dinosaur King and all of those things. But we can see she's got quite different in terms of anatomy from Tyrannosaurus. You can see she's quite a bit lankier and a little bit smaller. From what we know of, we have a pretty good idea of like how Tarbosaurus grew, and what we know and all the anatomy is that she's quite a little bit smaller, about 10 meters long versus T-Rex's of 12. A little bit smaller, it's just not quite as bulky. It's more specialized, similar to Giganotosaurs and trying to shear off flesh, just not quite as bulky and built for crushing bone as much as Tyrannosaurus, but it still could deliver a nasty bite. So that's mainly what's different. Also a little bit lankier. We also know what's weird is that if we see from Tyrannosaurus, it kind of goes from a really lanky stage to a really hefty stage as it grows up. These guys are pretty consistent as they grow, which is pretty cool. It shows the difference between the two animals. Still a very beautiful animal. See, quite a bit lankier. Still a hefty animal. Very large theropod. 10 meters long. So that's with things like Dinosaurus and the Brachiosaurus and all of those guys. She's here having a drink. It's weird is that these guys won't fight, so I don't think we'll have a fight today. I'm not really in the mood for a fight. Just want to show off how cool these animals are. Very pretty girl. I think now she's going for feed. We'll let her off with her having a feed. Lucky girl. you can see the difference there. It's just a little bit thicker. Then you have T-Rex, which is like uber thick, and she's the lithe comparison. But they all survived. It's just because they were eating different things. Obviously, Tyrannosaurus, as I mentioned, was eating ankylosaurs and ceratopsians. She was probably most likely eating more things like hadrosaurs and sauropods, which means that there's a lot more flesh on them. So it means this raking strategy works a lot better. But no, it's a very beautiful girl, and I think that concludes us today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed part 8, and yeah, hopefully you guys like and subscribe as usual. I'd really like to see more from you. Get some comments, see what you guys want to see from this channel, and yeah, hopefully you guys like and subscribe, and bye bye.